where's Lynn, who has been holding for a while, unresolved conflicts with my husband about different viewpoints. When I try to work through it, he just chalks it up to having different perspectives. Lynn, welcome to the program.
Thank you. And thank you for your service.
Well, you are so kind. I'm going to make you caller of the day.
So back to the question that I'm asking, we have an outstanding conflict that has been unresolved for 7 years. And I haven't always approached it in a healthy way, seeing myself, and then now making the changes. I am behaving in a different way, thinking first and then behaving.
Good for you. So same
yes.
conflict, but you're handling it in a different way after probably the art of confrontation. You're handling it
Yes.
in a different way that's reduced the conflict angst of it to some healthy degree, but the disagreement's still there.
Yes. And
Okay.
the piece, I don't feel that anxiety. So anyway,
you're taking
I'm just
too much responsibility for the other person's experience.
Yes, yes, and giving room. And then now, even though I'm sad that there's a disconnect and that it's unresolved, I'm.
Well, why is there a disconnect if something's unresolved? How does that equal a disconnect?
Because in the relationship, there's not a reconciliation. It's an existence. Bringing the issue, which part of it is.
Are you equating agreeing with reconciliation?
I'm not sure that I follow.
Maybe. Well, like my wife and I have 50,000 disagreements, but we're not unreconciled. We're still together and connected and love each other and all of that, but we don't agree on everything.
Yes, and that's healthy. That's healthy for
well, wouldn't
us,
you have to have that
are.
in any marriage? In any marriage, if you agree on everything, somebody's unnecessary. I mean, you married somebody
exactly.
They have different opinions.
Exactly, and so that's where that has been a change in the last few years.
So you found freedom.
Oh yes, yes.
Okay, so what we're gonna have to worry about time here a little bit. What's the question?
Sure. So the question of when we continue to we come back to the same issue, it boils down to, well, this is what I hear him say. I have a different perspective, which is true, and I have a different perspective, which is true. But how can we then agree that we have different perspectives, but how can we go forward because what happens, it's not resolved, there's no into it, we just end the conversation, and then it could be days, it could be weeks before it's brought up again, and then we still don't resolve
does it require resolution?
Yes, let
me tell you what I'm asking. Let's say you really disagree. You're a Democrat. He's a Republican. It doesn't require agreement. People can love each other when they have different perspectives. But you want to live in New York. He wants to live in Chicago. That requires some sort of coming to terms because it's going to involve something where you're yoked together to actually have to invest time, energy, resources, your body, or something else.
Yes, let me clarify, because those are great examples. That's not the issue. Is the priority of the marriage. So he has become a pastor, and so our marriage, I wasn't ready to go into that because I knew there were some unresolved things before we take on the responsibility of that, and I wanted to wait. And because I wasn't in a great place, I went along with it. And so it has been unresolved. And so for years, we're still at that same place.
What's been unresolved? You don't want to be
the priority. Well, no, the priority of the marriage, because prior to that, he was a workaholic. And so now
So it's not any
he's been
different. It's not any different.
Right.
He just transferred the workaholism over to now he can seem holy for doing it.
Exactly. And then now I'm not following suit. I'm not submitting. It's not a priority to me, which it totally is. But as the relationship, you can only be as healthy as the individual, and then the individual as a couple.
Okay, so
And
can
so
you take this out of the theoretical for me? Priority in the marriage. I don't know what that means. What do we talk? What do you have a different perspective on? Like where does this cause a real problem?
instead of having a date night or time together
Okay.
outside of the responsibility, that being a priority, that is not done. I shouldn't say everything. What happens is the activities, the needs, that is the priority, and then our relationship.
Okay. How bad is it?
Well, it's non-functioning. I mean,
No, I mean,
we're
how
kind
bad
to each other.
is he out 7 nights a week?
Well, even if he's in the house, he's still not present.
Okay, so
It's a constant
because
thing.
of work,
And I
because
realize,
of work, because of work.
yes, and I think
Okay,
it goes
so
back to thinking.
he's working 7 nights a week. That's what you're telling
Yes.
me. Okay. I'd go to the elder board,
Okay.
or well, I wouldn't do that first. I tell you why I say that. Okay, that came out of anger on my part. Seriously,
Yes.
that is horrible. Okay, now, I don't know what kind of pastor he is. Is he a Christian?
Yes.
Okay, if he walked in my office, he said, 7 nights a week, you never talk to your wife? That's what you're telling me?
Not emotionally. Not emotionally. We'll talk about the things of the church. We'll talk about possibly things about the family, but there's not that emotional connection.
Well, I don't know what that means. Now we're getting a little squishy in terms of terms.
Yeah.
What you told me before was he comes home and he works on church stuff 7 nights a week. That sounds like that's a little different than what's actually happening. So I'm not as angry
Yes.
anymore.
Yes, there's
Okay.
studying, there's other things when we do, it's probably a little bit at dinner time, falling asleep watching the news.
Okay. Here's what I don't understand. And I say this with all due respect to the Reverend. Does he teach the Bible?
Yes.
Okay. I would want to ask him. I'm going to go just to one little place. I'm going to go to the book of Ephesians. And I'm going to read to the Reverend, and I'm going to ask him how he's doing this. Husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her to make her holy, cleansing her by the washing with water through the word, and to present her to himself as a radiant church without stain or wrinkle or any other blemish, but holy and blameless. In the same way, now you think about how Jesus is, what does it mean in the way that he loves the people that follow him? That's what the church is. In the same way, husbands ought to love their wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself. After all, no one ever hated their own body, but they feed and care for their body, just as Christ does for the church, for we are members of his body. That's the charge to a husband. If you go further, because if he's a pastor, he's probably, we could put him in the qualifications for eldership, right? Of what's required from them,
Yes.
who manages his own household well. So
Right.
he's, and I could go further times 1,000. I would want to know from him, how can you be working 7 nights a week and deal with that passage?
We've had that discussion and it doesn't go anywhere. We have different perspectives.
Well, then I'd say that's unacceptable to me, and we're going to marriage counseling. Because this isn't working.
Yes.
I really, really would encourage you to get him in some marriage counseling. Because if what you're telling me is accurate, and for 7 nights a week you are getting not ever connected with, and you're relegating, and he's getting the news to babysit you, then I would hope whoever his overseers are would have a problem with this.
Yeah.
So if what you're telling me is true, it's not disagreeing over politics.
No.
It's wanting him to be a husband.
Correct.
Men, I don't know how many of you are listening. But listen to me here. She needs to be wanted, like that passage says, where he gave himself up for her. Listen to those words. Let me get back to it here. No one ever hated their own body. Do you care for your wife in the same way that you would care for your own body? At the very elementary levels, that would mean, even if you don't care for your body like like one of those vegan types, which I'm not, even if you don't go to extremes and have nutrients and perfect diet and exercise and all that, even if you don't do that, the baseline of care for your body is you don't want your body to hurt. That's the baseline. If you got a toothache, what do? You go to the dentist. If you have a bellyache, you go take at least some Pepto-Bismol or something. If you have a headache, you take an Advil. If you break your arm, you go to the doctor. That's the least we would do for our bodies, much less a little more than that, hopefully. If your wife is in pain in her marriage, you're going to ignore that pain and call it a different perspective? Yeah, let me tell that to my next abscess too. Oh, we just have a different perspective. Nerve endings. No. If you call yourself a follower of Jesus, when your wife is hurting, you better run to that hurt. You got me on this one. I mean, I could rant. So I could rant.